Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This video is being brought to you unbiasedly and unsponsored by yours truly for HelloFresh. I'm going to show you how we made this delicious meal from this fresh food delivery service. The food is delivered to you fresh on ice, so it's cold when it arrives to your door. If you're like me and you live in Arizona, you don't need to worry about your food spoiling if you can't get to it immediately. Each meal that you select for your delivery will come with a personalized recipe pack along with the directions on the back that tells you how to cook it. I selected the service that includes 6 meals for 2 people. I do not use this service weekly, but I do use it bi-weekly. We're going to be making the ramen noodle stir fry, but I still want you to see all of the packages that come inside of this huge box. Everything is individually wrapped for each meal. All of the recipes are in one bag per recipe sheet, and the meat comes under the ice packs. The ramen stir fry has great reviews, so I thought this would be the best one for us to all cook together. Your recipe card tells you everything that comes in the bag for your ingredients. So for this recipe, that includes your sauce, your scallions, your carrot that you're going to use, which, by the way, all of the vegetables that came in this pack were extremely fresh. I have absolutely no complaints. The rest of the recipes also include the peanuts, the pork ramen stock, garlic clove, red wine vinegar, peanut butter, chili flakes, ramen noodles, and of course the ground pork. So I definitely like that you can see exactly what the recipes are. Everything is clearly labeled so there's no confusion. And already it seems that everything is pretty well portioned out too. The noodles were also pretty interesting. I've never cooked with these kind of noodles before. They cook extremely fast, as you'll see in just a moment during the video, but I actually really like them, and I think this is something that I'm going to start looking for in the stores for the ramen noodles. It literally only took about 2 minutes. You'll notice that some things with HelloFresh, they will over-portionize when they provide it to you, and some things they'll give you just exactly what you need, like this little garlic clove. So before we jump to the cooking, let's hop on the HelloFresh app really fast. The app is pretty simple to use, actually. You just log on, choose your meals for the week, and you'll get it delivered to your door. You can choose to substitute out meals. You can also add additional meals. Some meals that you want to add on or replace may have a surcharge to it, but nothing too crazy in price to substitute out, which I thought it was pretty reasonable for some of the meals they offered. For the next 6 days, these are all of the meals that I selected. I am a pretty busy working mom, so I do like to keep all of my meal times within 30 minutes and a low prep time. This is the meal that we're going to be making today. The prep time for this meal was 10 minutes and the cook time is only 30 minutes. One thing that I probably did not like about the app is that you had to create an account and put in your credit card before you get to start selecting meals and seeing what you can substitute. I wasn't a fan of that part. But you have to remember there are no commitments, and it is an easy cancellation if you're not happy with your selection. As I said previously, I chose a plan for 6 meals throughout the week and for 2 people. I'm a little nervous to try this food service for my kids because they are the pickiest of picky eaters, so I'm just leaving this for me and my husband. You can select your food preferences from meat and veggies to just veggies. It is flexible in that option. And you could also go back in at any time to upgrade your meal preference, 6 meals, 5 meals, 4 meals, 2 people, or for 4 people. When you check out, if you see that you may want additional meals, you can always go ahead and add an extra one on if you want to do it for 7 days a week instead of 6 days a week. And there is, of course, an upcharge for that. You can use this app to always check your payment history, order history, and you can always adjust your food delivery options anytime before your order ships out. So yeah, pretty simple. I recommend just hopping on the app and taking a look at it to see if this is something that's for you. But if you want to keep watching this video to see it from my perspective, let's get right to it. So my HelloFresh order arrived yesterday evening on a Sunday, which was great. However, I decided to put everything in the refrigerator and start my food week on Monday. So my food service will last me until Saturday. I do not have a next one coming next week because I am choosing this for a bi-weekly service. So I actually have my next week canceled out, and then it will pick back up the week after. So we are following the recipe card for this, which is not something I would normally do for my food delivery services. I actually prefer just to be a little bit more creative on my own and just kind of play with it. But for the sake of this video, we're going to be following the recipe to a T, just so you can see exactly what it's like. So what you just saw me do was pour the water into the pot with a little bit of salt to get ready to boil for the noodle. Next, it is going to have you dice up the carrots, peel and mince the garlic, trim the scallions, and then you're going to chop the peanuts. As you can see here with me dicing the carrots, I did keep them kind of large and did not really go off the picture, which I kind of later regretted because they did not get soft enough, but they were still really good with the meal. If you choose this recipe, I do recommend dicing them into smaller pieces. This was actually the longest part of my prep, so the recipe card was true when it said the prep time is only about 10 minutes. Once I got that part out of the way, the recipe card tells you to whisk together the sweet soy glaze, the stock, half of the red paste, half of the vinegar, half of the peanut butter, a teaspoon of sugar, and 1/4 cup of water, and the chili flakes to taste. When I originally started this video, I did do exactly as the recipe said, with doing half of the paste and half teaspoon of sugar and half of the vinegar and half of the peanut butter. However, after mixing everything together, I decided to go back and just put everything in there and mix it all together because I wanted to have a little bit more sauce than the recipe was calling for. And in the end, I am glad I made that decision because I do still feel like while the recipe was really good, I wish there was more sauce. I like my food to be a little bit more saucy, but that's just a personal preference. Also to note, the recipe card does tell you how to portion this out for 2 people or for 4 servings, depending on what you selected. And then you just go ahead and whisk everything together until it's well blended and smooth. Well, once all the prep work is done, you can start cooking the pork. And at this point, I also started boiling the water for the noodles because the recipe actually calls for it once the pork finishes. However, it tells you to start boiling the water during step 1, and then it tells you to cook the ramen during step 5. I highly recommend if you have a fast boiling stove like I do, then just wait until you start cooking the pork to start boiling the water. Originally, I thought the pork would not be enough. I overcook everything, so to me, it did not look like it would be enough. But once everything started cooking and coming together, I was satisfied. I think HelloFresh really shows me just how much I overcook everything and how much I overdo it with portions. So right here, when you see me put the noodles in, when I tell you they cook fast, they cook fast. Almost immediately, you can see how they started to sink into the water to cook. And this step only takes about 1 to 2 minutes, and then they're done. Because the noodles cook so fast, I actually recommend not starting to cook the noodles until after the pork has finished cooking. This is because once the noodles finish, they're just going to sit there on the stove, and then you'll have to drain them and rinse them with cool water. But the longer they sit, they will start to stick together. Once the pork finished cooking, you will go ahead and add the garlic and the scallion pieces to the pan, and then you will slowly start to stir in the sauce. During this step, I was just adding everything little by little, and then I went to go ahead and add the sauce. Once the sauce was added, I let it sit for a little bit to thicken up. And the recipe card tells you to do this for approximately 1 to 2 minutes. And then it starts to smell really good. There's a nice kick of spiciness to this, especially with the chili flakes that were added. Another thing that I went against the recipe in doing with the ramen noodles was cooking the entire pack. The recipe calls for you to cook only 3/4 of the noodles. However, I knew I would want a little bit more noodles than usual, so I just cooked the whole pack. So once you rinse those noodles with cool water, you can go ahead and mix and add them in. This is exactly what I was talking about with waiting a little bit longer to start cooking the noodles, because as they were sitting, they were starting to stick together. And just to save you some hassle, just cook it after the pork is done. They cook so fast, so you're not waiting for it too long to mix in with the pork and the sauce. But once I was able to mix everything together, it started to break up and come back together perfectly. So here we just go ahead and add all of the remaining ingredients. Some of it is said save to sprinkle on top for after you make your plate. I didn't want to do that, so I just mix everything in together. You can also see just how big the carrots really are sitting inside of the pan. This is one of the reasons why I wish I diced them a little smaller. They were not in this pan long enough to soften up, and this part really only takes like a couple of minutes. So at this point, the recipe is pretty much done. This is a huge pan, so this portion for 2 people is a lot. This probably will feed about 4 or 5 people. So this is another thing that I appreciate with HelloFresh. Pretty much for every meal that you cook, you will always have a little bit of leftovers. This smelled amazing, and this is something that I could really add to my recipes to cook once or twice a month. So let's get ready to start plating this so you can see just how well it portions out for 2 plates. I'm not sure if you can get a good ratio from the camera, but this is a lot of food that I am putting on each plate at the moment, and it's probably about 2 portions on each plate. So what's left over in the pan is probably what I expected it to look like for 2 people with the recipe by itself, but it really does make a lot of food, which again, I love that part of HelloFresh. You're definitely getting your money's worth in that sense. I love this meal so much. I did go back for seconds. Don't judge me, but it was that good. So I told you about all the things were great. Let's touch on some of the cons for HelloFresh, because this is not a perfect service. I primarily eat on a low carb or keto diet, so you should know that their meals are not very low carb or keto friendly. While they do have some options that are low carb and keto friendly, most of those items are an upcharge to add to your delivery service. And the recipes just are not as good as their regular recipes. But you will notice that a lot of their recipes comes with potatoes, fries, rice. So please be prepared for that. Another issue is the pricing. I get HelloFresh discounted through my employer, and likely without that discount, I probably would have never tried this service. You really have to weigh the costs and benefits for the area you live in, how you eat, your appetite, if it's for a family, if it's for just you and your spouse. All of that makes a huge difference when choosing to do a fresh food delivery service. With my discount, it actually comes out cheaper. However, without my discount, it would not be cost effective for me. Either way, at this point, I don't plan on stopping this HelloFresh delivery service anytime soon. I do plan to keep using it. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, tell me your thoughts.